Well, Richard, thanks again for joining us on the program tonight, sir. I appreciate your time.
Sure, glad to do it.
And if we can, I'd like to talk a little about your client, Pastor William Duncan in Elizabethton, Tennessee. He took a trip to Washington, D.C. over the 4th of July weekend with his family, and that's where the problem begins.
That's right. He brought his family. His wife was with him. He's a man in his mid-60s, been a pastor for 30-some years, Army veteran, not retired, but a veteran. He was with his wife, his daughter, who is a local police officer, his son-in-law, who is a federal law enforcement officer, and his young granddaughter and very young grandson. And they had come here to enjoy the 4th of July weekend and for the first time see the national fireworks display. And unfortunately, they were, as it turned out, they were staying at a Holiday Inn on Capitol Hill. They had reservations there. What they weren't aware of was that the Holiday Inn garage shares the garage with a federal agency. And so as the two vehicles pulled into the garage, the son-in-law's vehicle in the front and Pastor Duncan's behind, the guard there asked if they had any firearms, and the son-in-law said, "Yes, I do. I'm a federal law enforcement officer," and showed his credentials, and he was let in. Mr. Duncan, unfortunately, also said that he had firearms in the car. He has a Tennessee permit to carry and had a handgun in the door of the driver's side of the car, which he had been carrying through his trip through Virginia and into D.C. for self-protection. And it never even occurred to him that in the nation's capital that a permit from one of the 50 states would not be recognized. And so he told the guard that he had a firearm in the car, and when was asked for his credentials, all he could produce was his Tennessee permit. Well, that wasn't obviously good enough, and within a matter of moments, I'm told, there was Metropolitan police officers and the SWAT team were called out, as well as federal officials who have use of that garage. The federal officials ultimately determined that they had no interest in the matter, and they left. But he was arrested by the Metropolitan Police Department for carrying a firearm without a license under D.C. law, which doesn't even allow you to get a license.
Right.
And taken off to the D.C. jail about 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday the 3rd, and spent the weekend there until I met him in court Monday morning at 11 and convinced the judge to release him on his own recognizance, which they did. So he spent almost 48 hours in the D.C. jail.
Wow. And the amazing thing is, Richard, I mean, we hear stories all the time about guys who have lengthy rap sheets, long records, and they're bonding out of jail in D.C. in a matter of hours sometimes. And yet this pastor, 64-year-old guy from Tennessee, he spends nearly, as you say, 48 hours in jail.
Yeah, well, he had the misfortune to be arrested on a Saturday, and there were no judges sitting on Sunday, so he wasn't able to be considered for release until Monday morning.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And the charges were ultimately dropped, right?
Yeah, the good news is I entered an appearance in the case and had requested a change of date on the preliminary hearing, and the government, out of the blue, dismissed all the charges. They had brought 5 charges against him, some of which were felonies. That is, the carrying the firearm without a license outside the home is a felony in D.C. And they charged him with that. And they charged him with possession of unregistered firearm, possession of ammunition for an unregistered firearm, and he had a second firearm, a second handgun in the car as well. And they found that because he honestly told them, when they said, "Where are the guns?" he told them where they were. And so, of course, he missed the fireworks as well. His family was so upset that they didn't even bother to go to the fireworks and just spent the whole weekend sitting in the hotel waiting for Monday morning. As I said, the story at least has a happy ending. The U.S. Attorney's Office I think, recognizes that this was just not the kind of case that they ought to be bringing, and they ultimately dismissed it. Now, the next battle, though, is to get his firearms back, and I've made a request to the Metropolitan Police Department to get them back, but so far I've not received any response.
No, not even a response yet.
Not even a response.
Wow. All right. Well, Richard, we're going to continue following this story, and if you win, you do get a response back from the Metropolitan PD. Let us know, will you?
I'd be glad to.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Attorney Richard Gardiner joining us here on NRAnews.com.